Hello guys, today I want to explain the movie Glass Onion, a Knives Out, which contains spoilers. Take care and enjoy. The story begins in May 2020, during the early stages of the COVID-19 epidemic. Connecticut Governor Claire DeBella is in the middle of an in-home interview when she receives an unidentified parcel. At Alpha Industries, scientist Lionel Toussaint is on a video chat with his superiors, who are pleading with him not to sign off on his boss, Miles Braun, whose newest product might endanger lives. Miles then sends Lionel the identical package. At a party, supermodel Birdie J is being looked after by her helpless assistant Peg, while they also receive the gift from Miles, and Peg is attempting to keep an intoxicated Birdie away from her phone. Finally, there is the issue of men's rights. Duke Cody, a Twitch celebrity, is filming a video with his girlfriend Whiskey, when his mother informs him that he also received the gift. Claire, Lionel, Birdie, and Duke all call each other to figure out how to open the box. The rest of the box is a series of riddles that lead to a model of a structure, and an invitation from Miles to his own island for the weekend. When Lionel figures it out, Cassandra, Andy Brand, is the last person to get the package, and she just tears the box apart before noticing the invitation. On a video call with Natasha Lyon, Angela Lansbury, Stephen Sondheim, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Detective Benoit Blanc is in the bathtub. They are all concerned that Blanc isn't leaving his apartment between investigations. Then Philip, Blanc's partner, phones Blanc to let him know he's received a package. Blanc subsequently joins the visitors as they wait for a ship to transport them to Miles Island. Claire, Birdie, joined by Peg, Lionel, and Duke, joined by Whiskey, are all excited to see Blanc for one of his renowned cases. Just before they leave, Miles' assistant instructs them to take in a disinfectant that will allow them to interact without masks. Everyone is taken aback when they see Andy arrive on the boat. On the ship, Lionel informs Blanc that everyone is startled to see Andy, since she had a publicized falling out with Miles when he cut her out of a huge business venture. The guests arrive on Miles Island, where he greets them along with a chance visitor named Daryl, Noah Eagan. Miles then shows visitors his residence, the Glass Onion, which is named after a bar frequented by the gang. He says that they will be participating in a murder mystery, in which he will be the victim, and he gives them all specific bracelets to their rooms, and Blanc emerges for the first time to meet Andy. Blanc then goes to Miles' office, where it is discovered that Miles did not truly invite Blanc to the event, despite the fact that he received the invitation. The visitors settle in and head to the pool, where they sip spiked kombuchas. During this point, Whiskey looks to be approaching Miles, despite Duke's observation. Peg approaches Birdie and tells her that she has to speak with Miles regarding a personal situation, and Birdie remarks on how Miles was a nobody when she first met him. Miles sits down to give a brief speech to the gathering, before Andy walks over to rage against him and the others, knowing that they are latching onto Miles, since he supports all of their endeavors, Claire's political run, Duke's Twitch career, and so on. Peg then goes to locate Miles, and urges him to stop harassing Birdie, because the problem involves a sweatshop in Bangladesh that created the garments she produces, but Miles is unconvinced. Blanc tries to smoke a cigar, but is deterred by an alarm. He then notices Duke capturing Miles and Whiskey having an affair in his bedroom. Miles gathers people for drinks before the mystery at night. Blanc almost immediately deduces that the would-be murderer is Birdie, because she is seated directly across from a statue with a time-released crossbow that would strike Miles. The arrow kills Miles, which annoys him, but impresses everyone else. Miles goes to clean himself up, with Blanc following him and apologizing for ruining the surprise so quickly, despite the fact that he has brought people together who all have legitimate reasons to want him dead. Blanc then notices a framed artifact that Miles has, which is a cocktail napkin on which he allegedly wrote the details that led to Alpha's development. While the guests continue to drink, Miles mentions that he has the real Mona Lisa on loan from the Louvre, because they are short on funds owing to the pandemic. It has a sensitive alarm system with an open failsafe. Miles then calls everyone together for another presentation. He has created a new, unproven fuel source called Clear, which powers the entire Glass Onion. Lionel informs him that this is absurd because he required at least 2 years to test Clear before releasing it to the public. Andy calls Miles out again, and she is challenged by Duke, who informs her that in the end she simply lost. She walks out of the gathering. Everyone keeps partying, and Duke draws Miles' attention to something on his phone that he claims might be a game changer, and land Duke a coveted slot in Alpha News. Miles prepares a drink and hands it to Duke, who immediately begins choking. The others try to assist, but Duke dies. The gang begins to search for his phone, but no one can locate it, because it has ceased beeping from alerts. People begin to think that Miles was the intended victim, and that someone intended to poison him, and they also notice that Duke's revolver, which he normally carries with him, is missing. When 10 o'clock rolls around, the lights start to fade out all over the place, coming in screaming that Andy ransacked their room. Whiskey. In the shadows, Blanc pursues Andy, but just as they start conversing, a gunshot from an unidentified attacker hits Andy. When the others enter, they see Blanc standing over her. The group is then gathered by him in another room. The film then flashes back to the moment Blanc accepted the invitation. Helen, Andy's twin sister, paid him a visit and brought him the smashed-up puzzle box. Helen informs Blanc that Andy is said to have committed suicide a few days ago, but she believes she was murdered. Miles had cut Andy out of the Clear deal, because she knew it was potentially dangerous, but he went behind her back and persuaded Claire, Lionel, Duke, and Bertie to testify against her, in order to completely remove her from Alpha. Helen points out that the four of them were all close friends with Andy, before she introduced them to Miles, whom they all thought was a loser. They only cared about him once he made it to the top and helped them out. In her wrath, Andy discovered the real cocktail napkin on which she conceived all of the Alpha concepts, that Miles stole and passed off as his own. Because the envelope was missing from her home and there was no suicide note, Helen believes one of the group poisoned Andy, and placed her body in her car, to make it look like a suicide. Blanc devises the plan for him and Helen to visit the island, with Helen posing as Andy. Despite her reservations, she can pass herself off as Andy by changing her hair and accent. On the boat, Duke and Bertie express surprise at the appearance of Andy, so Blanc advises Helen on how to avoid suspicion. Helen becomes intoxicated and snoops on the island's visitors to gather motives and possibilities. She overhears Lionel and Claire discussing how Claire is jeopardizing their careers, since Claire may lose potential voters for supporting it, and Lionel hasn't mentioned that Claire is sensitive to leakage, which might create catastrophic explosions. Helen also places a recorder in Bertie's bag, which records her conversation with Peg, during which Bertie admits to signing off on a statement, in which she would accept full responsibility for the Bangladesh sweatshops, in order for Miles to reimburse her. Finally, Helen confides in Whiskey and learns that she is unhappy in her relationship with Duke, who sees her only as arm candy. Also turns out that he asked Whiskey to seduce Miles, in order to persuade him to let Duke appear on Alpha News. But Miles doesn't want the bad press, because Duke tried to sell erection pills to teenage boys. During the evening party, Blanc instructs Helen to start an argument that she will lose, so she may leave the party and search people's rooms for the envelope. After Duke is dead, Whiskey enters Helen's room and points a trident gun at her, but the lights go out, allowing Helen to flee. Blanc and she catch up before the intruder shoots at her. Helen lives because she has one of Andy's handbooks on her person, but Blanc uses Jeremy Renner brand hot sauce to fool the rest of the gang into thinking Helen is dead, allowing her to continue her search. Helen discovers the envelope in Miles' office, and she begins to receive condolences for Andy's death, which has only recently become public knowledge. Blanc then informs the group that Miles is not the tech genius he portrays himself to be, due to his use of malapropisms and other illogical concepts. He even goes so far as to say that Miles is the true murderer. Despite his claims that Duke had inadvertently snatched the glass meant for Miles, he directly handed it to him and took his rifle, where he waited for an opportunity to plant the gun and turn off the lights, as Blanc had indirectly suggested. Duke died because he gave Miles the article about Andy's death, which he thought he could use to blackmail him into joining Alpha News. Miles placed pineapple juice in Duke's drink, despite the fact that he was allergic to pineapples. Days before, Duke was nearly hit by Miles' automobile as he was leaving Andy's apartment. Duke, Claire, Lionel, and Bertie went to check on Andy, but received no response. Miles had murdered her after discovering the email from Lionel, in which Andy was carrying the envelope. Helen appears, startling everyone and revealing herself to be Andy's twin sister. Miles burns the napkin she presents to establish that Andy was the true mastermind, leaving them with no evidence. Because the rest of the gang is too silent to speak out for Andy, Helen calls them shitheads. Blanc, having accepted defeat, leaves Helen with a drink. Helen downs her glass and begins to smash Miles' various costly belongings. As Blanc had previously stated, Helen is more quick-thinking when inebriated. The rest of the group then rallies behind Helen and begins smashing stuff, right up until Helen ignites a fire.she, then gives Miles the other thing Blanc left her, a sample of clear. Helen throws it into the fire, causing it to enter the vents and cause a massive explosion, destroying the glass onion. Blanc and Daryl observe from afar while smoking cigars. As Miles' house burns down, Helen resolves to repay him one more favor by unlocking the case containing the Mona Lisa and allowing it to catch fire. Miles chastises and mocks Helen as the guests leave, claiming that she still has no proof that Andy did anything, but she is pleased, knowing that she wrecked Miles' image and his economic empire. The remaining visitors then agree to testify against Miles. Just as the police begin to arrive on the island, Helen then joins Blanc near the sea, smirking contentedly at the ocean. Subscribe and leave me a comment for more videos like this. Thanks for watching.